Hello everyone, Polymath USA here. If you like this presentation and you find this information useful, please be sure and subscribe, like, and share, and comment below. I will also put the link for this website below so you can check it out for yourself. We're talking about climate change a little bit today, and what you're looking at here is an article that showed up in Principia Scientific International, one of the premier scientific websites on the internet. And it's talking about government reports. So let me just get into it right here. Uncovered. Government report proves climate data unfit for purpose. What they're talking about here, I'm going to read it to you, but what they're talking about here is how the reports that have been provided that support the idea that there is a warming trend and that it's human caused is actually coming from reports that are unfit. So let's just read it here. In 1999, the National Academy of Sciences, the research arm of the National Research Council, released a study expressing concern about the accuracy of the data used in the debate over climate change. They said there are deficiencies in the accuracy, quality, and continuity of the records that place serious limitations on the confidence that can be placed in the research results. The people who reach these conclusions and their affiliations at the time follows, and they're saying that's what's below here. Now, okay, so this is from 1999, and one could suggest, that's old data, or old information, rather. But I'm going to suggest that the same thing's been going on. It's probably even worse. Here's the list of folks right here, and I will be sure to include the link for this article below so you guys can check it out yourself. But this is just to name a few: Thomas R. Carl from the National Climatic Data Center in North Carolina. We've got Gerald Meal, National Center of Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado. Stephen Running, University of Montana. William Schlesinger, Duke University. Ann Thompson, NASA Goddard Flight Center. W. Lawrence Gates, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in Livermore, California. Peter Webster, University of Colorado, Boulder. On and on and on. You got somebody also from NOAA, Sidney Levitas, NOAA National Oceanic Data Center. All right. Let's continue. These are prominent names, many of them important in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and promotion of its ideas. For example, Gordon McBean chaired the formation meeting of the IPCC in Villach, Austria in 1985. Bert Bowen was appointed the first IPCC co-chair along with Sir John Houghton. Thomas Carl and James Hansen were two dominant figures in terms of the control and manipulation of the data right up to their very recent retirements. So some of these people just recently retired. So we are talking about 18 years ago, but a lot happens in that time frame. And the deceptions that have been used against the public are still in play, and actually worse. Carl chaired the study, so he knew better than any that to achieve the results they wanted, namely a steadily increasing temperature of over 120 plus years of instrumental record, was made easier by the inadequacy of the data. They ignored the fact that the inadequacy of the data negated the viability of the work they planned and did. For example, the extent, density, and continuity of the data are completely inadequate as the basis for a mathematical computer model of global climate. In short, they knew that they would have to create, make up, or modify data to even approximate a result. The trouble is that the data was so inadequate that even with their actions and results could not approximate reality. Despite this, the IPCC committed to the surface data, even though elsewhere decisions were made to reduce the number of stations and thus further limit the coverage. There were two main reasons for the reduction: the increasing diversion of funds to global warming research and expensive computer models, and the anticipation of weather data from satellites. Commendably, they upgraded the data, but all that data does is emphasize the anomalies. Important points. There are no stations with over 130 years of record. There are approximately 300 stations with about 120 years of record. Virtually all the stations with over 100 years of record are in the eastern U.S. or Western Europe. First significant decrease after 1960, anticipating satellite replacement. Second decrease around 1995 associated with the switch of funding to global warming away from data collection and reduction of stations used. Despite reduction in number of stations, coverage only declines slightly. That is scientifically not possible. Current 20% of the northern hemisphere and 25% of the southern hemisphere has no coverage at all. Let me repeat that one. This is very, very important. Currently, 20% of the northern hemisphere and 25% of the southern hemisphere has no coverage at all. Quality of the coverage is critical but very variable, as Thomas Carl notes in the foreword. Unlike sciences where strict laboratory controls are the rule, climate researchers have to rely on observations collected in different countries and using different instruments. Remember, the U.S. coverage is the best yet, but only 7.9% of their stations are accurate to -1 degree Celsius. Here's an example from the preface to the 1950 to 1980 Canadian climate normals of what Carl is reporting. No hourly data exists in the digital archive before 1953. The averages appearing in this volume have been derived from all hourly observations at the selected hours for the posted period 1953 to 1980 inclusive. The reader should note that many stations have fewer than 28 years of record in the complete averaging. Although he did not contribute to the study, Kevin Trenberth commented on its release that it's very clear we do not have a climate observing system. This may be a shock to many people who assume that we do know adequately what is going on with the climate, but we don't. Despite this, Trenberth created an energy balance model that is central to the entire greenhouse effect climate claims. The National Research Council study focused on the inadequacies of the instrumental record. It appeared shortly after H.H. Lamb released the autobiography in 1997, in which he expanded on the larger limitations for climate research. He wrote that he established the Climate Research Unit because it was clear that the first and greatest need was to establish facts of the present record of the natural climate in times before any side effects of human activities could well be important. So in 1990, the people involved in the creation and control of the IPCC knew that the data during the 120 years of human activity was inadequate. They also knew that the data necessary to show the extent of the impact was equally inadequate. They didn't stop them, but it meant that they knew they had to create the data they needed and how to do it. So it's saying here that they knew they had to create the data. It's not something that they're going to really pull from the instruments. They're creating it. The IPCC could maintain the story and the data that supported their claim of human-caused global warming if they controlled all the data sources that all started to unravel after 2000. Number one, the satellite data confirmed by the balloon records were reaching a link that they could no longer ignore. By 2007, the IPCC included the following comment in the fourth assessment report. New analysis of balloon-borne and satellite measurements of lower and mid-tropospheric temperature show warming rates that are similar to those of the surface temperature record and are consistent with their respective uncertainties, largely reconciling a discrepancy noted in the TAR. Severely cold winters and increased snowfall captured public attention, as many cartoons attested. The pause of hiatus past the 17 years Benjamin Santer required before even considering the pattern. The gap between increasing atmospheric CO2 levels and the actual temperatures continued to grow. But none of this stopped the search for proof that Thomas Carl created a record and wrote a paper for Tom Peterson that claimed the hiatus did not occur and that data and methods with serious limitations. After exposure of the misuse, the co-authors refused the congressional subpoena seeking the data and methods used. Carl and others involved in the deception that is anthropogenic global warming knew from the start and better than anyone that severe limitations of the instrumental data set. They likely knew from Lamb's work that limitations in historic record. Despite this, or rather because of this, they oversaw the building of the computer models, wrote papers and produced official reports, and convinced the world that it faced impending doom through runaway global warming, insisted. Their work based on what they knew was inadequate data from the start achieved universal acceptance. Of course, they also knew better than most how to manipulate and select data to make points that supported their false hypothesis, at least until the satellite data achieved scientific status. But even then, they maintain the deception. So they prove that they are charter members of the Post-Fact Society. The latest example was triggered by panic over Trump's withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement and analyzed by Tony Heller. Read more at drtimball.com. I'm going to put the link to this article below. But basically, what you understand here is that these people that are pushing the climate change narrative, they've got something to gain. Namely, you got a bunch of scientists that are being paid to produce research instruments, research documents, and records that suggest that there is a warming and it suggests that it's being caused by humans. This is just all untrue, and it's a tragedy, really. There's also others too that are making a lot of money off of all this too, green investments. So, all right, so that's that article. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please hit like and share below if you enjoyed this kind of information. I'm going to bring a lot more of this to you. And this is Polymath USA signing out.